security. And trafficking in prisons, I want to ask you about that, because I know your organization said, and this is all part of what's going on that's leading to this. It did specifically with the area of the prison, the safety of your officers, because they said that many people are ordering hits from behind the prison walls. Brings the question of the cell phones. But your organization also said there are some officers, if they are found, they should be dismissed immediately if they are found trafficking, because there is an issue of trafficking going on through the hands of some of the officers. Speak to us about this trafficking situation in prison, in the remand area and in the prison population at large.
Well, and correctly, as you stated, we have been advocating for the instant removal of officers who are found trafficking. They add a dimension to the environment that is very, very, places us in a very, very compromising position. So we don't support trafficking. We don't support traffickers. We have said it many a time. If you get caught, don't come to the association. We would not be offering any help whatsoever. But on the other end of that, you have where you need to set up the necessary security apparatus to ensure that you could sanitize as best as possible the officer before he enters into that environment. Now, ideally, what should happen is that once he comes to work, he is searched. And once he's getting into the prison area, he must walk with nothing. No bag, no nothing. Stiffer penalties are needed. I know that with the grabbers and jammers on their way, and also the telephone, the inmate telephone system that's supposed to have their pilot project started in a bit, we expect to have some reduction of it. But trafficking is not only in cell phones. You have marijuana, you have cigarettes, you have even some weapons that we have found. You want to know, the inmate don't leave and go by the shop to buy anything. But to what extent
their clothing play in this? Because it's against having prison garb, standard prison outfit. A lot of folks are allowed to keep their regular clothes while they're there.
On remand, yes. And that is something that we have been asking to be changed. You see, not only for uniformity, it also a hygiene issue that we could deal with if we provide the remandee with a suit of clothes, and we would not be inventing the wheel in doing that. There are a lot of jurisdictions where that is the norm.
What is the resistance to this, Gerald Gordon? What is the resistance?
I have no idea. Sometimes I mean, you sit and you hear people talk, and they talk about cost, and they talk about, but really and truly, having the people all be in the same, whether it's we use a jumpsuit, we could regulate how many times per week they get fresh suits of clothes. I mean, I went to a conference and they do clothing specifically geared towards inmates. So they do from underwear to socks to the jumper to vest, everything. The person could be well outfitted. You pass, you collect. You have special laundry days where you will collect and give them a fresh set, and it's much better. Right now in the remand situation, with everyone having their own clothes, you have people washing and people have clothes hang up all over the place, also adding to that darkness, that sort of murkiness, because I mean, it's not.
So we all stand against it. Sharmain, if you forgive me just for this one question I want to ask of you, Gordon, because you said we have number 12. If we get to number 13, you are putting it at the feet of the Prime Minister. There's a statement here attributed, I believe, either to you or to your president. Now, because you were expressing disappointment in the promises and or the inaction, many folks think that that's a bit political. How do you respond to that?
It's not about politics. If you look through all of the interviews that we would have done over the years that we have been at the helm of the executive, we have never gone that political route. We don't, because ultimately, with the Port of Spain prison being 200 years old, I mean, if we had to be political, I mean, it could get crazy.
Indeed.
But when we engage the executive, and when we went to the Security Council, and, we are expressing to them our concerns about what is happening. And then you see on the back end of that, when the budget is read, and then you look at what is allocated to the Ministry of Justice, you frown, because you're like, but like these people not like somewhere
So
along
there's
the line
disillusionment with
yeah,
governance. But if, as your organization said, we had a hand in removing the justice minister because of inability to do the job, and you say that if we have the unlucky number 13 is going to sit at the feet of the prime minister, that's where it's going to be. That is what folks are saying, and that's what I'm asking you to respond to.
Yeah, but it is going to be a defeat of whoever is at the head of the executive, because it is not that they are unaware of the challenges and what we are facing, but we operate in a bureaucratic setting where sometimes the simplest of things that really and truly shouldn't take more than probably a couple of months. You're looking at 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you're hearing this rhetoric on and on and on and on. And even because we went on a whole trip was to deal with the new building of the new remand facility. So we went out to see what is being done in first world countries, how they are operating. I know that there's some work being done by UDICOT, but we take too long. And in the backdrop to that is, while we are taking so long and bureaucracy and we're having meetings, 10,000 meetings, I just call it the country of meetings. We meet, but nothing really happens. And that is of grave concern to us.
Thank you.
Because while we wait and we meet and we tender and we go thing and supply and it goes back and forth, how they say the grass growing by the cow starving.
We so you have a situation where there are so many things that you need, but you have to work with what you have in the meantime, because it seems like nothing is forthcoming in the very near future or in the short term.
Yes.
All right. So there are random searches of prison officers, and there are random attempts to sanitize the prison. That's a word that I see popping up coming from prison officials now. Why are the searches of prison officers random when you know it is rampant? Because if you get 94 cell phones in one sanitizing search, there would be 94 cell phones brought in by how many prison officers?
Exactly.
Right? So why are the searches of the prison officers so random? Why are you waiting for body scanners to be introduced? Because
at the end, let me deal with the human nature. Once somebody they made up their mind they're going to go or take a particular course of action, they will find all sorts of ways to get it done.
Okay. Okay. So before we go further, then let's enlighten people. What are some of the ways how they bring in the stuff? You would know that if your colleagues are caught with bringing in stuff. How do you bring in a cell phone? How do you bring in cigarettes? How do you bring in marijuana?
They would have held officers. They would have held officers. At the gate, not guns. We would have held officers at the gate. Sometimes we will get information from the police because we do get some cooperation from them. Or we may even get a tip-off from inmates, because one would understand this is a lucrative business. So sometimes somebody want to cut up somebody, so they will call anonymously. Listen, we're expecting Sharmain to come in lunchtime. She come in late with XYZ. When you come, she walks through the gate. Right now, the scanner at Golden Grove Prison is not functioning. So we have an issue where they will get the information, they would intercept, they would seize. The officer is then charged, whatever. But when you go to he is suspended, then you see he's on suspension for 5-6 years, and he comes and he wins the matter, and he's back to work. And this is why we were saying from inception, if once we have a senior officer has held you, he has his witnesses, whatever it is, we don't care about the matter. You could go to court and win, the police could stop, you could do whatever you want, but we don't want you in our environment. But the fact that we are public officers, that means there's a whole change in the whole structure of the Public Service Commission that needs to happen to have that done.
But in the system, it seems, and it hints of an inherent bias that you all are going in there, sanitizing and getting the cell phones and all the other stuff that the prisoners would have, the more dangerous stuff. And prison officers are just coming and going with it, because as fast as you take away 94 cell phones,
and this is the problem. This is the problem, and this is why we have been asking and begging for that whole issue to bring the technology on board. And you say, I need to say that this is not a situation unique to us.
But how random are those searches of prison officers? Where you
most times every officer needs to be searched once he's coming to work, right? It wouldn't be a minute search. Nobody go in and make him strip down to search, but they need to search his bag as he's entering or whatnot.
And the person who is searching the bag could be in collusion with him and let it pass. It wouldn't, because it would not be one officer bringing himself.
No, but then it wouldn't be one officer working the gate all the time either.
Okay.
So because you have those changes, but let us focus on what would the remedies be, because we could spend whole day talking about people who choosing to break or do the wrong thing, but that doesn't change the fact that they're going to continue to do the wrong thing. What we have to do is that we need to have an environment developed that is going to dissuade them from doing the wrong thing, and that is where we are not getting the support. So that is why we're excited with the body scanners that are coming. Those full body scanners, they're similar to what you see in the airport. I think we get them from an Israeli supplier. And that will now deal with the fact that once they pass through, that will pick up down to residue of marijuana or cocaine or even firearms or whatever it is. It will pick up every single thing that is on the person. So that is why we are anxiously awaiting the implementation of those body scanners to deal with, on that one end, the issue of contraband entering the prison via the officer and even the inmates returning from court. Because there is another way that a lot of contraband comes into the prison. So we need a real multi-tiered approach to the whole issue of trafficking, the whole issue of contraband management. It needs to be multi-tiered. You're not going to get one plaster that's going to solve all things. So you need the handheld scanners. You need the body scanners at the gate. You need the jamming of the airways. You also need a system set up where people are held accountable when they are found attempting to breach the regulation.
Well, can I ask you something? There's this general perception, excuse me, that cell phones are used in prison for the criminal industry. But we also know of families that stay together because of cell phones in prison.
Yeah, we're not denying that at all.
But it's instead of using the jammers and stuff, and no matter what bank of telephones that you put in the prison that people have to line up to go use at specific times and probably speak between 3 and 4 every Friday, you get 10 minutes to speak on the phone. Do you see a way that the cell phone system could be regulated in the prison that they can use it?
No.
No?
And that is based on my own research, because when I did research, I think it's the Mississippi Correctional Services. They are like light years ahead of where we are. They had a serious problems with phones. They did with the handheld scanners, the scanning at the gate for the officers, the handheld scanners. They did jamming, and all of those things subsequently were not as successful as they wanted until they reach a point now where they do something called managed access, where the prison itself sets up its own cellular network. And once you attempt to make a call, what happens is that it goes to that network, and you get a nice message saying you're attempting to make a call on an unauthorized handheld unit.
It is one of those. It's a lot of technology that's going to be difficult. Gerald Gordon is our guest this morning. He's the General Secretary of the Prison Officers Association. We're very happy to have you here and for being so candid. There is a report that a number of the prison officers became sick because of the food served them last week. You heard anything about that?
The prison officers?
The prison officers, yes. Got sick because of the food served them? No. All right. So move right on to my other question. The area of some kind of action being taken or planned or proposed by disgruntled officers because of the situation that obtained at Golden Grove.
Yeah, well, we have a matter that we are going to be sending before the court. It's one that where we are challenging the system in that the state has a duty of care to the officers of the Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service. And that duty of care is being trampled upon when we continue to work in an environment that is less than conducive for doing the job. And I know you all will be able to relate, because I looking at your lovely studio, a lot of technology, nice things going on. And just imagine you come to work and you using some analog old-time board from 1960, old Yoho, and the transmitter is some weird thing, and they're telling you, listen, you need to go out there and broadcast, and you are looking like, how am I to manage that? And that is the best way I could explain what is happening within the prison service. Now, when you have officers who are being threatened, you have officers that are being injured, then you talk about the diseases that officers have to endure because they're working in the environment. You're talking smallpox, measles, tuberculosis, listen, scabies, all sort of things officers take home sometime to their families.
And survive peeling as well.
And survive peeling. And that is another challenge, because we had an officer recently with his 10 peels, and he still went up the road, he took a shower, and he put on his own civilian, he came back down and work. And you see, we don't hear the back end of the stories. We have a lot. We have, people, I hate to use percentages, and people say, well, 95% of the officers, but the majority of officers are very, very hard-working individuals, and the sacrifices that we make on a daily basis, it tells a story. Because the other day I was going through my own personal feelings about, boy, better I leave this work. Because when I look at, we only have just over 100 retirees. And when you think, wait, no, only over 100 retirees, so where the rest? Where the rest of retirees? And then when we were doing something at the association, because we have a group health plan, and we had these people come and present from various insurance agencies. One of the guys, he did some research, and he said, well, listen, y'all don't see your 60th birthday. And I'm like, what? So, and then he brought the data. And the data lining up, because when we retire at 55, mandatory, most officers don't see their 60th birthday, because by that time they would have, because of the job, the hours that you work, the constant stress that you're under, there's sometimes the inability to eat on time, and then when you do get to eat is what you get to eat. You're talking about heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetic, and all the other surrounding thing that stress, and then stress brings on cancer. We had a number of officers suffering and passing away before their 60th birthday, as Pretel, the guy said, with cancer. Listen, so you're practically putting your life, you're giving away your life to the state, and the facts are there.
Why did you become a prison officer? Because there is a conviction in it, as much as someone is a teacher. Because I know prison officers. There's a prison officer in my family. Trevor Julian is now retired, and there is a conviction in it. So and there are people, but the intake now, the young people that are coming in, do you see that conviction in them, or is it because you get the sense that as they come in very easily, that's the problem that you all are having with that contraband? They're easily corrupted, because apart from your basic salary, you earn a lot more by doing what's illegal.
No, I think that once again, an environment is a very enabling thing, and like any other place, I think that once you place somebody in an environment where there's very little consequence, they are not being held to account, we don't have those high levels of security, you're going to have the one or two people who are going to always want to do their own thing. But generally speaking, when you listen to some of I don't think it has ever changed when you hear people say they really want to help.
Yes.
And some of them came into the service thinking that, listen, I am going to do X or I'm going to do Y. I really want to impact people's lives. You have people now coming in with a whole host of qualifications and whatnot. So I think that drive is still there. It's just that the environment that we are forced to operate in, it takes a toll on the individual.
Gerald Gordon, General Secretary of the Prison Officers Association, we used up our hour with you already. It looks as though we just started talking.